The county excavator had barely scraped 3 feet beneath my mine road when the operator suddenly killed the engine. Everything went silent. A dozen people stood along the shoulder. County inspectors, utility workers, 2 sheriff's deputies, my attorney, and 3 members of the Silver Pines HOA board. Then the operator climbed down and pointed into the trench. "You all need to see this." I stepped closer. A thick blue waterline ran straight through the exposed dirt beneath my road. County engineer Marcus Reed crouched beside it, brushed away the soil, and stared at the markings printed along the pipe. Then he looked up at Vanessa Whitmore, the HOA president. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said slowly, "who authorized this installation?" Vanessa's face changed instantly. For 3 months, that woman had treated me like a criminal. She had barricaded the only road leading to my family's mine. She had threatened me with fines. She had sent private security guards to stop my trucks. And she had repeatedly claimed that the road belonged under HOA control. Now she stood beside her white Mercedes with her arms folded tightly across her chest. "That line serves our community," she said. "I don't understand what this has to do with Mr. Mercer's dispute." Marcus stood. "It has everything to do with it." My attorney, Rachel Bennett, stepped beside me. "What are you seeing?" Marcus pointed toward the trench. "This water main crosses Daniel's parcel for approximately 1,100 feet. Vanessa shook her head. "No, there's a utility easement." Marcus looked directly at her. "Show me." She hesitated. It was the first time I had ever seen Vanessa Whitmore without an immediate answer. One of the HOA board members whispered something behind her. Vanessa snapped, "Be quiet, Richard." Rachel glanced at me. That tiny exchange told us both the same thing. Something was wrong. Marcus pulled a rolled county utility map from his truck and spread it across the hood. "The recorded easement ends here." His finger stopped near the eastern boundary of Silver Pines Estates. Then he traced the water line beneath my road. "This installation continues almost a quarter-mile beyond it." Vanessa stepped toward him. "Our developer handled those permits 15 years ago." Marcus's expression hardened. "I checked the permit archive this morning." Another silence. "There is no permit for this section." Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the deputies, then toward me. I could almost see her calculating. I folded my arms. "You blocked this road because you said I had no legal right to use it." "That's correct," she answered quickly. I pointed into the trench. "Then why is your neighborhood stealing water access through my property?" Her face flushed. "We are not stealing anything." Marcus interrupted. "There's another problem." He climbed into the trench and wiped dirt from a metal junction attached to the pipe. Rachel leaned forward. "What is that?" Marcus stared at it for several seconds. "A bypass valve." Vanessa immediately said, "That's normal." "No," Marcus replied. His voice had changed. "This isn't normal at all." He motioned toward one of the utility technicians. The technician climbed down, inspected the valve, then followed a smaller buried line toward the HOA boundary. When he came back, his expression was grim. "This bypass appears to connect upstream of the county meter." Rachel slowly turned toward Vanessa. "I didn't understand the significance yet." Then Marcus explained it. "If this configuration is what it appears to be, Silver Pines Estates may have been drawing unmetered county water through a line installed illegally beneath Mr. Mercer's private property." One of the deputies straightened. Vanessa went pale. And suddenly, the barricades, the threats, and her obsession with keeping me off my own mine road made horrifying sense. She hadn't been trying to control my road. She had been trying to keep me from discovering what was buried underneath it. 3 months earlier, I had no idea there was a water line beneath that road. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 54 years old and I own Mercer Ridge Mining outside Durango, Colorado." Calling it a mining company makes it sound bigger than it is. Most days it was me, my foreman Luis Ortega, 4 employees, 2 dump trucks, an excavator, and enough paperwork to make me wonder why I ever left construction. The mine sat on 47 acres my father bought in 1987. It wasn't some giant open pit tearing apart a mountainside. We operated a small permitted aggregate mine, supplying crushed stone and gravel to contractors throughout La Plata County. But the land meant more to me than the business. My father had spent 25 years building it. When he died, I found an old photograph inside his desk showing the 2 of us standing beside the original access road. I was 17, skinny as a fence post, holding a shovel while Dad leaned against his battered Ford pickup. I still kept that photograph in my office. For decades, nothing surrounded our western boundary except pine trees and open land. Then Silver Pines Estates arrived. The development went up about 15 years ago. Expensive mountain homes, landscaped entrances, decorative stone walls, and eventually an HOA that seemed increasingly interested in everything happening outside its own boundaries. Our mine road existed long before the subdivision. It connected County Road 214 directly to my property and was the only practical route capable of handling our loaded trucks. For years, nobody questioned it. Then Vanessa Whitmore became HOA president. The first warning came on a Monday morning. Louise called me before 7. "Daniel, you better get down here." "What happened?" "Somebody put signs beside the access road." I drove out and found 3 freshly installed metal signs. "Private HOA road. Commercial traffic prohibited." I actually laughed. Louise didn't. "You authorized those?" "No. I photographed them and called the HOA office," Vanessa answered. When I explained who I was, her voice became strangely calm. "Mr. Mercer, the board has been reviewing traffic concerns. That road belongs to my parcel." "That's not our understanding." I looked down the empty road. "Then your understanding is wrong." She paused. "You'll receive documentation." 2 days later, I did. A certified letter claimed Silver Pines possessed Roadway Management Authority over the section crossing near its boundary. My attorney told me not to panic. The county records appeared to support my ownership, so I kept operating. Then Friday morning, Luis called again. This time, he wasn't confused. He sounded furious. "Daniel." I could hear diesel engines idling behind him. "You need to come now." What did they do? They blocked the road. When I arrived, concrete barriers stretched from shoulder to shoulder, and standing beside them were 2 private security guards and Vanessa Whitmore. She was holding a folder. Behind the barricade, 6 of my loaded trucks were trapped inside the mine. Vanessa watched me step from my pickup. Then she smiled. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "now perhaps you'll understand that we were serious." I walked toward Vanessa until only one concrete barrier separated us. "Move them." She didn't even look at the barricades. Instead, she opened her folder and pulled out a laminated document. "You were formally notified that commercial traffic is prohibited on this roadway." Luis came up behind me. "Those trucks have used this road longer than your subdivision has existed." One of the security guards shifted his weight and rested a hand near his belt. Vanessa noticed me watching him. "Please don't make this confrontational, Mr. Mercer." I almost laughed. "You parked concrete barriers across my access road and brought armed security onto my property. They aren't armed." The taller guard turned slightly. A handgun was clearly visible beneath his jacket. I looked back at Vanessa. "Want to try that answer again?" Her jaw tightened. She handed me the document. Across the top were the words, "Silver Pines Estates, Emergency Road Control Order." It claimed heavy commercial vehicles were damaging a privately maintained HOA roadway and creating a danger to residents. There was only one problem. "This isn't an HOA road." Vanessa sighed like she was explaining something to a child. "The subdivision has maintained portions of this corridor for 15 years. Maintenance doesn't transfer ownership. Our attorney disagrees." "Then your attorney can explain it to mine." I pulled out my phone. Vanessa immediately raised her voice. "If you move those barriers without authorization, we will pursue damages." I stopped. That was when I noticed a sheriff's SUV coming around the curve. Deputy Aaron Cole stepped out. Vanessa walked toward him before I could say anything. "Deputy, thank God. He's threatening to force his way through." Aaron looked at me. "Daniel?" I told her to remove barriers from my road. Vanessa held out another document. "This is HOA-controlled property." Aaron read it carefully. Then he looked toward the county road. "I'm not deciding a property boundary standing beside a barricade." "Then arrest him if he moves it," Vanessa demanded. Aaron's expression hardened. "That's not how this works." For the first time, Vanessa lost some of her confidence. Aaron took photographs, recorded everyone's information, and told both sides the dispute would have to be resolved through property records or court. But the barricades stayed. That cost me almost $9,000 the first day. By Monday, we were approaching $30,000. I rerouted smaller vehicles over an old service trail, but loaded dump trucks couldn't safely use it. Then the pressure campaign started. Silver Pines residents received an email claiming my mine had dramatically increased dangerous industrial traffic. Someone reported us to County Environmental Services. Another complaint alleged excessive blasting. We didn't even use explosives. Then Vanessa sent me an invoice. Roadway damage assessment. $86,400. I stared at it in Rachel Bennett's office. Rachel had represented my company for 6 years. She was 48, sharp-eyed, patient, and almost impossible to intimidate. She read the invoice twice. This is interesting. What's interesting about $86,000? They're claiming you damaged a road. They also claim you're prohibited from using. I leaned back. So they're trying very hard to establish control. Rachel pulled up the county parcel map on her computer. My property boundary appeared exactly where I expected. Then she enlarged an older subdivision plat. Her eyes narrowed. What? She didn't answer immediately. She compared another document, then another. Finally, she pointed at a thin line running beside my access road. Daniel, do you know what this is? I leaned closer. No. It's marked as a proposed utility corridor. Proposed? From 15 years ago. She clicked through the recorded documents. There was no final easement attached. Rachel became completely still. Vanessa isn't fighting this hard over truck traffic. I looked at her. What are you saying? She turned the monitor toward me. I'm saying we need to find out what Silver Pines put under your road. The next morning, Rachel and I were sitting inside the La Plata County Records office with a retired surveyor named Thomas Avery. Thomas was 67, wore wire-framed glasses, and had spent 38 years surveying land throughout southwestern Colorado. Rachel had called him because his signature appeared on the original Silver Pines subdivision plat. He spread 3 large maps across the table. This is your parcel, he said, tapping the western boundary, and this is the subdivision. I pointed toward the thin utility corridor Rachel had found. What exactly was proposed here? Thomas adjusted his glasses. Originally, water. Rachel looked at him. For Silver Pines? Yes. My stomach tightened. Thomas pulled another sheet forward. The developer wanted to connect the subdivision to the county water system. The shortest route crossed part of the Mercer property. Did my father approve it? Thomas shook his head. That's where things got complicated. He remembered meeting my father. According to Thomas, the developer offered him money for a permanent utility easement beneath the access road. My father refused, not because he wanted to hurt the subdivision, but because he planned to expand mine operations and didn't want a major utility line beneath a heavy industrial road. So they changed the route? I asked. They were supposed to. Thomas showed us a revised 2011 plan. The approved water main curved north, completely avoiding our property. Rachel leaned closer. And that's the plan recorded with the county? Correct. That should have ended it. It didn't. Rachel requested utility inspection records. What came back made Thomas frown. Several inspection pages from the subdivision's construction period referenced stations that didn't match the approved northern route. One entry specifically mentioned Mercer Access Crossing. I read it twice. If the approved line never crossed our property, why does an inspector mention my road? Exactly, Rachel said. We spent the afternoon pulling permits, contractor invoices, meeting minutes, and archived engineering correspondence. Then we found an email from 2012. It had been sent by Silver Pines' original developer to a utility contractor. One sentence jumped off the page. Field route approved due to substantial cost savings. Easement documentation to follow. But we couldn't find any documentation that followed. No signed easement, no amendment. No recorded agreement from my father. Nothing. Thomas leaned back. If they used the field route, they buried the line beneath my land. I finished. Rachel wasn't ready to assume that. She hired a private utility location company. 2 days later, I stood beside my mine road watching technicians roll ground-penetrating equipment along the shoulder. Vanessa arrived before they finished. Her Mercedes stopped hard enough to throw dust across the road. She got out and marched toward us. What are these people doing? Rachel stepped forward. Investigating Mr. Mercer's property. You cannot interfere with subdivision utilities. Nobody had mentioned utilities. Rachel and I looked at each other. Vanessa realized her mistake immediately. What subdivision utilities? Rachel asked. Vanessa folded her arms. I'm speaking generally. Rachel smiled slightly. Of course. The technician called me over. He had marked the ground with blue paint. A line ran directly beneath the center of my access road. Not 20 feet. Not 100. It continued towards Silver Pines. Rachel photographed every marking. Vanessa stood motionless beside her car. Then the technician said something that changed the entire investigation. There's another line here. Rachel turned. Another water line, smaller. He pointed toward a second signal, branching away from the main pipe. Where does it go? The technician followed the reading toward the subdivision entrance. Then he looked back at us, toward their meter station. Rachel's expression hardened, because according to the county plans we had just reviewed, no second line was supposed to exist at all. Rachel didn't let anyone excavate the line. Not yet. If we dig without the county involved, she told me, Vanessa will claim we damaged their system or contaminated evidence. So we documented everything and contacted Marcus Reed, a senior county engineer who supervised utility compliance. Marcus spent nearly an hour comparing the locator markings with county maps. Then he said quietly, "These shouldn't be here." The county opened a formal inspection. That was when Vanessa became desperate. The next morning I found another barrier at the mine entrance. This one carried a red notice, "Unsafe industrial access. Entry prohibited pending review." There was a county seal printed at the bottom. I photographed it and sent it to Marcus. He called me 5 minutes later. "Daniel, where did you get that?" "It's attached to my gate." "That isn't ours." I stared at the notice. "It has your seal. It has an image of our seal. Nobody in my department issued it." Rachel arrived before noon. She examined the notice without touching it. "Leave it exactly where it is." By afternoon, Deputy Aaron Cole was photographing it. Vanessa appeared 20 minutes later. She stayed beside her Mercedes. Rachel walked toward her. "Did Silver Pines post this?" "Our legal counsel advised residents that the road presents safety concerns." "That wasn't my question." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You people are turning a simple traffic dispute into harassment." Rachel actually stopped walking. "Harassment? You're digging through 15-year-old records, bringing investigators into our neighborhood, frightening homeowners." "We haven't entered your neighborhood." Vanessa looked at me. "You know what your mind does to property values?" There it was. Not safety, not road maintenance, property values. I stepped closer. "And what does an illegal water line do to them?" Her face went rigid. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Vanessa said, "Be very careful making accusations you can't prove." Rachel answered for me. "That's why the county is excavating Thursday." Vanessa's confidence disappeared. Only for a second, but I saw it. That evening, Rachel received something even more damaging. Thomas Avery had located archived correspondence from the original developer. Attached was a construction cost comparison. The approved Northern Water route was estimated at $612,000. The unauthorized route beneath my father's road, $238,000. A handwritten note appeared beside the cheaper option. "Use Mercer alignment. Resolve easement later." They had saved nearly $400,000 by crossing our property. But the real smoking gun came from county billing records. Marcus discovered that Silver Pines' reported water consumption had repeatedly fallen below engineering estimates for a development of its size. The discrepancy went back years. When he compared the location of the official meter with the second buried line identified by the utility locator, he became concerned that the smaller line might bypass metering entirely. That turned a property dispute into something much more serious. Thursday morning, county vehicles arrived before 8. So did sheriff's deputies. Rachel stood beside me as the excavator positioned its bucket over the blue markings. Across the road, Vanessa watched with 3 HOA board members. Nobody spoke. The bucket broke through the first layer of gravel, then dirt. 2 feet. 3. The operator suddenly stopped. He climbed down. "You all need to see this." I walked toward the trench. Blue pipe emerged beneath the soil. Then Marcus climbed down and exposed the smaller connection. A bypass valve, exactly where the locator had predicted. He stared at it, then at Vanessa, and for the first time since she blocked my road, Vanessa looked genuinely afraid. Marcus climbed out and removed his gloves. "Secure the excavation," he told his crew. Rachel stepped beside him. "What happens now?" Marcus looked toward the deputies. "Now we determine how much water went through that bypass, and who knew it was here." Vanessa turned toward her Mercedes. One deputy moved into her path. "Mrs. Whitmore," she froze. "We're going to need you to stay available." Rachel quietly opened her case folder. Court was 4 days away. And now Vanessa wasn't just going to have to explain why she blocked my road. She was going to have to explain what the county had found underneath it. 4 days later, I sat beside Rachel in a packed La Plata County courtroom, while Vanessa Whitmore stared straight ahead from the opposite table. The hearing had originally been scheduled to decide one question. Could Silver Pines HOA legally block my mine road? By 9:15 that morning, everyone understood the case had become much bigger. Judge Eleanor Hayes entered and looked over the filings. "Ms. Bennett?" Rachel stood. "Your Honor, before addressing access, We need to discuss evidence discovered beneath the disputed roadway. Vanessa's attorney, Gregory Palmer, rose immediately. The HOA objects. Utility infrastructure is outside the scope of this hearing. Judge Hayes looked over her glasses. Your client claims authority over the road, correct? Yes. And the infrastructure is beneath that road. Gregory hesitated. Apparently. Then I'm listening. Rachel called Thomas Avery first. He identified the original subdivision plans and explained that my father had rejected the proposed utility easement. Gregory approached him on cross-examination. You're relying on memories from 15 years ago. Partly. So you could be mistaken. Thomas calmly opened the recorded plat. That's why surveyors make records. A few people behind me shifted. Thomas pointed to the approved northern utility route. The county approved this alignment. It does not cross Mercer property. Next came Marcus Reed. Rachel displayed photographs from the excavation. Mr. Reed, where was this water main found? Under Mr. Mercer's access road. Was there a recorded easement? Not that we located. A construction permit for that alignment? No. Then Rachel displayed the smaller pipe. And this? Marcus took a breath. A bypass connection located upstream of the subdivision's primary metering point. Gregory stood. Objection to any implication of theft. Sustained, Judge Hayes said. Ms. Bennett, establish facts. Rachel nodded. Could water travel through that connection without passing through the primary meter? Yes. The courtroom went completely quiet. Then Rachel turned toward Vanessa. We call Mrs. Whitmore. Vanessa walked to the witness stand, looking furious rather than frightened. Rachel began simply. When did you first learn a water line existed beneath my client's road? I don't remember. Before you blocked the road. I said I don't remember. Rachel lifted a document. Do you remember this email? Gregory leaned toward Vanessa. Rachel continued. It was sent 6 weeks before the barricades appeared. Judge Hayes read her copy. Rachel quoted only the relevant sentence. Mrs. Whitmore wrote, heavy mine traffic creates unacceptable exposure over the legacy water alignment. Vanessa's face drained of color. Rachel stepped closer. What did legacy water alignment mean? I'm not an engineer, but you knew something was beneath the road. I knew there might be old infrastructure. And instead of informing Mr. Mercer, you blocked his access? We were protecting residents. From what? Vanessa looked toward Gregory. He couldn't answer for her. Rachel placed another document on the display. It was an HOA maintenance invoice from 8 months earlier. Emergency repair. Mercer Road Bypass Junction. Judge Hayes leaned forward. Mrs. Whitmore. Vanessa swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. You testified moments ago that you could not remember when you learned of this infrastructure. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the witness rail. Judge Hayes pointed toward the invoice. Yet this document indicates your HOA authorized maintenance on the bypass 8 months ago. Vanessa looked at Gregory, then at Rachel, then, finally, at me. For 3 months she had acted as though I was trespassing on something she controlled. Now everyone in that courtroom could see why. Judge Hayes closed the file. I've heard enough testimony. My chest tightened. She looked first at Vanessa, then at me. I will rule on the roadway authority, the barricades, and the HOA's claimed assessments. She paused. As for the utility evidence, I am also referring the record to the appropriate county authorities for further investigation. Vanessa whispered something urgently to Gregory. Judge Hayes raised her hand. Mrs. Whitmore, sit down. Vanessa slowly lowered herself into her chair. Judge Hayes looked at the documents one final time. Then she said, I'm prepared to issue my ruling. Judge Hayes looked down at the recorded plats for several seconds before speaking. The evidence establishes that the disputed access road lies within the Mercer parcel and predates Silver Pines Estates. Nobody moved. The HOA has presented no deed, easement, recorded covenant, or other instrument granting it authority to prohibit Mr. Mercer's lawful use of that road. Vanessa leaned toward Gregory. The judge continued. Silver Pines Estates therefore had no legal authority to install barricades, restrict commercial access, or assess Mr. Mercer for alleged violations of HOA roadway rules. I felt Rachel's hand briefly touch my arm. It was over. At least, that part was. Judge Hayes ordered the HOA to remove every obstruction immediately and permanently prohibited it from interfering with lawful access to my mine. Then she addressed the $86,400 assessment. Void and unenforceable. Vanessa closed her eyes. Rachel requested compensation for documented business losses, legal expenses, emergency transportation costs, and damage caused by the blockade. The judge didn't determine the final amount that morning, but she preserved our claims and ordered the HOA to pay my attorney's fees associated with obtaining the injunction. Then her expression changed. The utility matter concerns me considerably. She looked directly at Vanessa. This court is making no criminal finding regarding the water system. That determination belongs to the relevant investigative authorities. However, the testimony and records presented today justify immediate referral. That distinction mattered. I didn't want revenge built on exaggeration. I wanted facts. And the facts were already devastating. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The story had spread after county crews closed part of Silver Pine's water system for inspection. I refused most interviews. Vanessa didn't. She stood near the courthouse steps and told one reporter the HOA had inherited historical infrastructure problems. Rachel quietly said beside me, "Interesting choice of words." The county investigation continued for weeks. Engineers confirmed the main water line had been installed through my property without a recorded easement. The bypass was also real. Billing specialists began reviewing years of consumption records to determine how much unmetered water might have passed through it and during what periods. Investigators separately examined who installed, maintained, and knew about the connection. Vanessa resigned as HOA president 11 days after the hearing. 2 other board members followed. Silver Pines hired independent counsel and publicly distanced the current homeowners from decisions made by past developers and board leadership. That mattered to me. Most residents hadn't known anything. Some actually came to my office and apologized. One older homeowner named George Miller shook my hand. "We were told you were trying to destroy our roads." I looked at him. "I was trying to reach my own mine." He nodded slowly. "I know that now." The concrete barriers disappeared that afternoon. Luis was waiting when I drove back. He pointed toward the open road. "You want the honor?" I climbed into the lead dump truck. 6 employees stood near the gate as I started the engine. For the first time in months, nothing blocked us. I drove slowly down the road my father had used before Silver Pines existed. When I reached the place where the county had excavated the pipe, I stopped. Beneath fresh gravel was the evidence that had finally exposed everything. Luis spoke through the radio. "You good, boss?" I looked at my father's old road stretching ahead. Then I smiled. "Yeah." I shifted into gear. "Let's get back to work." 6 months later, the mine road looked almost exactly the way it had before the fight began. No concrete barriers, no security guards, no threatening HOA notices, just gravel, pine trees, and the familiar sound of our trucks heading toward County Road 214. The legal cleanup took longer. Silver Pines eventually reached a settlement with me covering my documented business losses, legal expenses, and the permanent resolution of the utility issue. A properly negotiated easement was handled through attorneys and engineers, with protections for my property and mining operations. The county required the unauthorized bypass to be removed from service and the water system brought into compliance. What happened afterward mattered almost as much as winning. Silver Pines adopted new rules requiring independent legal review before the HOA could claim authority over property outside its recorded boundaries. Most of the homeowners wanted exactly what I had wanted from the beginning: peace. I never blamed them for Vanessa's decisions. One afternoon, I mounted my father's old photograph inside the mine office. 17-year-old me stood beside him on that same access road. For years, I thought the picture reminded me of how much the property meant to my family. After everything that happened, it reminded me of something else. Ownership means very little if you're unwilling to defend it with facts. Not anger, not threats. Facts. Recorded deeds, surveys, permits, photographs, emails, and the patience to let the truth become impossible to ignore. Vanessa tried to convince me that authority came from confidence. She had signs, security guards, letters, lawyers. But none of those things could create a property right that didn't exist. And sometimes the thing someone is fighting hardest to keep you away from is exactly where you need to look. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that crossed the line, tell me what happened in the comments. And here's my question for you. What would you have done the morning you found concrete barriers blocking the only road to your property? If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more property disputes, HOA battles, and satisfying legal showdowns. Thanks for spending this time with me. Protect what belongs to you, keep your records close, and never mistake someone else's confidence for legal authority.